Okay, good morning to friends and colleagues in Jakarta. Good day, Australia, and also welcome to everyone from all other places. This is Indonesia Policy Dialogue. It's an online series organized jointly by ANU Indonesia Project in Canberra and the Center for Indonesian Policy Studies, or CIPS, in Jakarta. My name is Arianto Patunru, or Acho, and I'm your host today. On behalf of Indonesia Project and CIPS, I would like to thank the Australian National University and Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade for their support. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present. In this inaugural dialogue, we are very grateful for the opportunity to have a conversation with Indonesia's Minister of Trade, His Excellency Mr. Muhammad Lutfi. We are going to talk about the future of Indonesia's trade policy, including the direction following the COVID crisis and Indonesia's position in the global value chain in the long term. I apologize to the audience that you cannot see one another due to the security feature of our Zoom platform. But if you have questions to the minister, please write them in the Q&A box. We will attend to them after the conversation and respond to as many as possible given the time. Now let me introduce briefly His Excellency. Bapak Lutfi is no stranger to Indonesian Government Office. He was the chairman of BKPM, or Indonesia's Investment Coordinating Board, in 2005 to 2009. He's the Indonesian Ambassador to Japan, 2010-2013, Minister of Trade, 2014, and most recently, Indonesian Ambassador to the US. And now he's back as the Minister of Trade again. So, welcome, Pak Lutfi, and thank you so much for allowing us to take 1 hour of your busy schedule. So let me start with first question, if you don't mind. As experienced by many other countries, our economic growth went into recession in the third quarter last year due to the COVID-19 crisis. How do you think Indonesia's trade policy may support economic recovery, Pak?
Well, let me first. I would like to thank ANU for inviting me here. It's an honor, especially for the inaugural talk. And I see a lot of friends, especially Professor Hill. He and I met during my tour in Tokyo between 2010 and 2013 with the prestigious Toyota. I think this is a Toyota think tank organizations in Japan. Bajo, let me start, with a thought first.
Sure.
Indonesia right now, like almost all the countries in the world, is experiencing a downturn in economy because of COVID-19. Back in April last year, we already made a decisions, because it's always a difficult things between closing economy or you have to pick with the spread of the COVID-19 itself. And Indonesia, all in all, we are not bottom of the pack in combating the spread of COVID-19, but we are probably in the middle pack, creeping up into a better ones. Okay, but in April 2020, the government of Republic of Indonesia made the decisions that vaccine is the only way out. So now, how is the number of this vaccine? Because I think without cutting the chain spreading of the COVID-19, we cannot have a good economic recovery. So the number is like this. Out of 270 million people, to have a herd immunity, we have to vaccinate around 70% of our populations. That numbers comes to 188 million people. Out of 180 million people with the comorbid, with people that already experienced and got the COVID-19, we'll calculate that we need to vaccinate 181.5 million people. In order to get 2 vaccinations, with 2 doses of vaccinations, that means we need 362 million doses.
Right.
Out of 362 million doses, we have to add some wastage, because some areas in Indonesia, the electricity is not stable, the distribution sometimes been impeded by things like flooding, or maybe some droughts, to transport the vaccine itself. So we put a 15% some buffer stock. So that means we need 426 million vaccines. Okay. Right now, we are more on the way for our first 25 million people being vaccinated. 57 million just came last Monday. So we are almost on targets for everyone to get vaccinations by the end of the first quarter of 2022. All the 426 the doses of vaccine. So hopefully, Indonesia will move forward during this time economically. So without this, the cutting of the spreading of the COVID-19, I think it is impossible to grow. Although, Pak Acho, I went to China 2 weeks ago. I saw how disciplined, and it's very difficult for people abroad to come into China, and China right now experiencing a double-digit economic growth, because they are very successful in treating and tracing and also vaccinating the people in China. But to be normal, it's not normal. People that had a contact with me in China had to do 5 days quarantine in the area where we met, and then when they go home, be that in Beijing, Shanghai, or Guangzhou, or wherever, they have to do another 7 days of quarantine. So movement of natural person that way is not free, and I don't think it will become normal anytime immediately in the near future. So that's one story. Okay. So then I always like, because sometimes trade ministers always looking from the supply side of economy. I would like to go from the demand side of economy itself. So let me go from the macro side. Okay. If you follow President Jokowi in the first terms of his administrations, and also during his campaign for the second terms of the presidency, he mentioned that Indonesia should be the number 4 economy in the world by 2045. So then I look back, try to calculate. That means in 2045, Indonesia's economy GDP per capita will be slightly less than $29,000. Okay. Because of that, then I see the trajectory of economic growth of Indonesia between today and 2045 has to be in the neighborhood of 6.4%. And if we go at that rate, that means we're gonna skip the middle income trap in 2032. So this is a very important numbers, because I'm going to describe how we're going to take care of this immediately in the near future of what's happening after the COVID-19. So if we look at, we agree on these numbers, then Indonesia at the same time has to grow also, and we have to describe on how we're going to do it. But let me go back to this middle income trap. Okay, Indonesia economy in 1998 was clocked GDP per capita at $463. 20 years later, in 2018, Indonesia's economy was clocked at $4,051. Because of that number, Indonesia inaugurated into the middle class of the world. But once you go into the middle class, you have another deadline. And study shows by OECD that no countries in the world will reach becoming a developed country when the demographic bonus is already ended. And Indonesia demographic bonus ended probably sometimes between 2038 to 2040. So another deadline, basically 2018 to 2038, 20 years. we have another deadline that we have to triple our GDP in order to become a developed country. So this is what we are trying to do. And in order to get out from the middle income trap, Indonesia needs to do two things. One is the investment in infrastructure, which Pak Jokowi had been doing since the first term. And second is transfer of technology vis-a-vis good education as well, because there is no transfer of technology without a good education. And this is a big challenge for Indonesia as well. But I'm not going to go deep on that, but I'm just going to go how we're going to take care of these things. Okay, so in order to get that 6.4% trajectory economic growth, Indonesia has to look at a couple of things. One is the investment. So Indonesian investment today, the contribution for GDP, this is a capital formations, was clocked, during 2018 was 34%, 2017 was 34%, that had gone down to around 31% last year. But in order to have the 6.4 GDP growth trajectory, Indonesia needs to almost grow by 7.3% in investment. That means that the contribution of GDP by 2045 will be close to 40% or 40%. Okay, what does that mean, Bang Acho? That means Indonesia has to be open for investment. Indonesia has to streamline all these red tapes, and fighting for the streamlining and pro-business process, especially on the issuance of an omnibus law, just in illustrations that Indonesia is a good place with a good investment climate into the country. We cannot discriminate, let alone between local and domestic, between domestic and international. Especially, we cannot choose who's going to invest in Indonesia, or we cannot say that we just want Australians and we don't want the Chinese, or we want the Chinese and not the Americans. We cannot do that. We cannot discriminate. Everyone will be treated the same. Okay, so then this is an opening, a streamlining, cutting of the red tapes becoming a very important part. Second part, manufacturing. This is a very important stuff. Indonesia manufacturing right now, we are number 4 country that with have the industrializations contributions to the GDP more than 20%. We're the number 4 country in the world, but we have to upgrade that to 32% to GDP, and that means the growth of industrializations will be close to 7.8% or close to 8%. Okay, and then also export and import. So in the calculation of GNP, this is export plus import. Today, export plus import instead of export minus import is 34%. This has to go up to 54%. What does that mean? That means Indonesia have to open its economy, and with a small mantra, in order to sell more, Indonesia have to buy more as well. This is to strengthening the GDP contributions. Can I go forward, or you want me to stop here?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So then, because this is the way how my thinking thought. Yeah. So then we go to what really happened during the crisis. Okay. So do you wanna, because I'll come with numbers, you want to see the numbers, or you just want me to say it, Bang Acho? You want me to see you want to see the numbers?
Yeah, if you have the slide,
yes, I do have the slides. So can we go to slide number 22? Yeah, the GDP component. So, this is how I look at things. Okay, if you look at the Indonesian pillars of economic growth, and this is the formula of GDP. Our consumptions in 2020 had gone up. Actually, the contribution of consumption had gone up from 57.9% to 58.9%. So basically, if you want to push up the economic growth, consumption is becoming a very important issue. Our government expenditure, though we give a lot of incentive, a lot of basically a lot of helps for the Indonesian economy. Nevertheless, the contributions for government expenditure is only 9.29%. Investment, like I mentioned to you, had gone down from 32% in 2019 to 31% in 2020. Export and import, if you put a plus export plus import, it's around 33%. But if you look at for the GDP contribution, export import plus 1%, and I will mention to you, I will explain to you what's going on. So from these numbers, if we want to look at a good growth for Indonesian economy in 2021, the consumption growth has to be 5%. let alone the government expenditure will be what it is. Investment has to grow by 15% during this abnormal economic situations. Export has to grow more than 5%, and import cannot be growing more than 2%. So this is the parameters of what we're going to do. Why is that? So let me go to slide number 26. Yeah? So this is what really happened during 2020. Industry had gone down by almost 3%. Agriculture, fisheries, and forestry had gone down almost 2%, 1.75%. Trade, I will explain to you trade, it contract more than 3.7%. Construction, property, and everything like that come in this site is minus 3.2%. Mining and explorations, believe it or not, is almost 2% contractions. Financial services minus 3.25%. And ladies and gentlemen, for the very first time since financial crisis in 1998, actually the growth of credits had been contracted in 2020, and IT and telecommunication had gone down by 10.5%, and actually a growth, and I'm sorry, financial is a growth, but the credit has been contracted, and also transportation and logistics is minus 15.04%. And if you look, I really like to look at the wholesale of automobiles and motorbike. This is non-disposable merchandise that we usually look for illustrations for economic growth in trade. The contractions is almost 50%, 48.35%, and motorcycle is 43.57%. This mirrored 100%, almost mirrored with the productions. So if you look on the number on the red colors on the left, automotive productions is minus 46.73%, and motorbike production had gone down by 40.21%. So this is a disturbing numbers for me, especially what it needs to do. So what the government did in the first quarter of this year was to give an incentive for people to start gaining the consumer confidence. We took away the luxury tax for automotive less than 1500 cc. So this is a middle class car, and the effect today is amazing. The back orders for automotive right now is almost 4 to 5 months, especially popular brands, and also for motorcycle, it's almost mirroring that. And also because we also give incentive for people to buy the property, so the luxury tax for property less than 2 billion rupiah, but $150,000 has no luxury tax, and that has been working very well. And if you look for the growth, the credit growth, especially for property, had gone up almost 5 times compared to the same period last year. So Indonesian economy in a way had gone up really, really well. But if I may, Pak Aco, I would like to go to our trade. This is part of my portfolio and my strategy how to do Indonesian trade for Indonesian economy. And let's go to slide number 13. Yes, let's go to number 13. Easier. I have so many papers here. Performance number 3. So I would like to start and give you what had happened in 2020 in relations of what Indonesia has been doing to push up, to give incentives so consumer confidence will come back and start moving forward with the industry. Let me give you some just straight profile. This is what happened in by the end of 2020. Our export of non-oil and gas export actually not, during the COVID-19 relatively we're doing well. If you look the corrections that was the circle number into 2020 is 155 billion. So if you compare of the non-oil and gas export in 2019, the correction is only 0.6%. Okay, but the one that really bothers me, actually, the import. You know, the import, especially for non-oil and gas, had gone down almost 15%, from 149 billion US dollar had gone down to 127.3 billion dollars, making Indonesia economy surplus 21.7 billion. The last time we had this kind of number was in 2012. And at that time, the price of oil had gone down to like 150 bucks. Coal had gone down to like $140. So it feels like at that time in 2011, 2012, it's like running a marathon going downhill. But today, if you look at the number, although it's very encouraging, we have a large surplus. But because I will show you the profile of Indonesian import, it feels like this is running a marathon with a sprained ankle. Why? Let me show you. Let's go to page of Indonesian import profile. Number 11, yes, plus, yeah. So this is what Indonesian import looks like, okay? 3/4 of our import, it comes as intermediate goods, okay? And then capital goods is around 16.7%, while consumption is only 10.4%. So if my numbers from our import gone down almost 15%, I feel like our industry is not being supported very well. The numbers can become from the maybe the weakening of purchasing power, but number two as well, that the number two, that the one that bothers me, it's actually because the imports been choked last year, that the industry becoming very weak. Okay, so now when we are expecting that the economic growth is second quarter needs to grow by at least 7% to offset the correction, the numbers in first quarter of 2021. In order for us to reach 5.5% economic growth, you know, we have to make sure our quality of imports will support our industry, because the industry will absorb a lot of workers. A lot of workers also create a consumer confidence for people to consume, and people consume will come back as a good cycle for this economy. So this is what I'm trying to do, making sure all the quality imports, our imports quality going to be better, our structure, our process is also going to be better. So I'm easing out a lot of imports to the country to make sure that our consumer goods is coming back, our consumer confidence is coming back, and our industry being supported very well. And let's see for our Indonesian export, Pak Aco, to just give you a brief number of where this Indonesian export coming from. Slide number 5, yeah. So if you look, this is top 30 of Indonesian export from oil, non-oil and gas. Okay, so this top 30 illustrates at least 88.75%. So basically this top 30, 90% of Indonesian export, all non-oil and gas export. And this is an HS2 number, so the numbers is it's in thousands, but this is how I simplify things, okay? So in the top 10, you'll see traditional products such as CPO, still dominating of Indonesian export. If you look, the export is more than $20 billion, with a healthy growth of 17.5%, and this is also supported by the super cycle of commodities pricing. So this I'll explain to you a little later. Mineral for coals, also there's a corrections more than 20%, but the number is very significant for Indonesian export, 17.2 billion US dollars. But I would like to underline three items in this top 10 products. The first one is iron and steel. Okay, so during my first time as a government official in 2005, I signed at least 2 big license for steel and steel product investment. So basically, people come to Indonesia and for the iron and steel, not only because of the market, but also with the commodity that we have, such as in this case is nickel. Nickel is the main ingredient for stainless steel. In the last 5 years or so, Indonesia has been developing its nickel and stainless steel capability for industry. And right now, Indonesia is the second largest stainless steel producer in the world after China. And look at the numbers. Last year, we almost export $11 billion from steel and steel product. The growth is almost 50%. That is 46.34%. Out of this 10.8 billion, I will explain to you, goes to China. And for the very first time in Indonesian history, actually, that we are slashing our trade deficit by more than half last year because of our export. And this is a good story. This is value additions from our basic commodity, that is nickel. It is invested by by international investor, that is China, coming from China. And then it creates a good structures for Indonesian industrializations, and stainless steel becoming a prima donna in an Indonesian export. A very good story. Number two, the one that I want to underline is actually jewelry. This is number 5 export last year. We export jewelry, gold and gold bullion, and so jewelry about $8.2 billion with the growth almost 25% compared to the same year in 2019. This is a lot of skilled worker, a lot of small and medium enterprises, and will be a prototype of Indonesian export in the future as well. Number 6 is automotive and auto parts. Believe it or not, this is because they're coming, the good story of the numbers of Indonesian market. So the Japanese cars manufacturer see Indonesia as a big potential for the market. In 2006, I saw the numbers. Every 1,000 people in United States, they have 1,001 cars. In Japan, every 1,000 people, they have 583 cars. So something closer to us is Thailand. Every 1,000 cars, they have 179 cars. In Indonesia at that time, every 1,000 people, there's only 37 cars. So I knew then this is a big market for automotive productions. And I knew then Indonesian or Jakarta will be 4 times worse traffic-wise compared to that year in 2006. So what really happened? During the crisis or the Thai crisis in 2010, this is sometimes a problem of middle income trap. The Thai was looking forward, well, maybe the Thai administration at that time, controlled by Thaksin Shinawatra, prime minister at that time, is talking about changing from royal into a republic. What really happened was a coup. The Japanese was not comfortable with the fact that there is no law in the country. Between Bangkok and Jakarta, Garuda flew 3 times a day with a big airplane, wide-body airplane, 8 Airbus A330-300s. The passengers are not Thai. The passengers were not Indonesian. The passenger is Japanese, moving their factory from Lamcabang to Karawang. And this is a good story. And because of that, Indonesia is in evolutions, from selling raw materials and half-finished products into industrial with high technology. So we are going toward that way. So I would like to also give you some numbers, profile of our export. Slide number 6. So if you look at our Indonesian export, this is the number 3 that I was talking about. Okay, so our CPO is still the prima donna of our Indonesian export. 70% goes to China, 15% go to India, and if you look, Spain, Italy is still there as a major buyers of Indonesian CPO. And right now we signed an agreement with the Swiss, with the EFTA countries that consisted of Swiss, Liechtenstein, Norway, and also Iceland. And this agreement also put into the system of sustainable products, including CPO. So this will be our gateway to the Europeans, with our more CPO to come in. The second story is about our stainless steel. So if you look at with the pie chart on the left, HS72, from $10 billion, from $11 billion, 69% went to China. And because of that, we cut our trade deficit with China almost half. And also the one that's also interesting is HS71, is jewelry. If you look the profile of Indonesian export, 36% to Singapore, 28% to Switzerland, and 10% goes to Japan. I don't think the people in Singapore have that demands of that big of jewelry. So we did a little study. What really happened was actually this export was meant to be sent into a GCC country. This is a custom union of the Gulf countries. And right now I'm negotiating for an expedite process with the Emirati, and hopefully we can cut our export into a transit countries for jewelry, especially countries like Singapore, Switzerland, and Hong Kong straight. What really happened was Singapore and GCC country had a trade agreement. Because of that, our jewelry sent from Jakarta, from Indonesia, from Surabaya for this purpose is actually 5% more expensive than if we were sending it from Singapore. So Singapore trader came to Jakarta to making sure that they have a price difference, and because of that, the export goes to Singapore.
Sorry, Pak Lutfi.
Yes,
can I take question just on that jewelry
sorry.
issue? No, it's
Yes.
okay, Pak, because there is a question very related to that jewelry issue. So one of the question is how much of the growth in jewelry exports is due to gold price increases? And the other question is what proportion of gold exports is jewelry as distinct from bullion?
Yes, well, because this is we do an HS scope, okay. So then we subscribe also. We make a little study about that. So the gold bullion, it's also one of the primary. So 41% of the gold under this HS code is actually gold bullion. So around 42%. The rest is a jewelry that coming from all Indonesian workers in Surabaya mainly, and Bali also, and now start growing to be in the north, in the Nusa Tenggara area as well.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Pak Lutfi, and also that was very comprehensive, and actually they anticipated my question, so I don't have many questions now. But still, on your point about Indonesia needs to be open and non-discriminative. As most of our audience would know, Indonesia and Australia recently signed and ratified the Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Partnership Agreement, IASEPA. And among many, this agreement allows for a powerhouse model that facilitates joint forces of the two countries in targeting a third market instead of mere bilateral give and takes. And also more recently, Indonesia and 14 other countries signed the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, RCEP. And many observers expect that this agreement will help the member countries to integrate more into the global value chain. How do you see this development of Indonesia's involvement in trade agreements recently, Pak Lutfi?
Well, since I show you that Indonesia is now evolving, from raw materials and half-finished goods at best into industrial and industrial with high technology, the trade agreement with maybe a lot of untraditional countries, untraditional destinations for export, becoming an inevitable process. We have to. During my time, Pak Aco, at trade, Indonesia only have two free trade agreement or economic trade agreement. One with Japan called IJPA, Indonesia-Japan Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, and one is a preferential trade agreement with Pakistan. And the rest is an ASEAN scheme. Okay, people with 250 million people, we only have two free trade agreement and ASEAN scheme. When I arrived at trade late last year, Indonesia signed one with Korea. I started it, We signed also one with EFTA countries. We signed one with Australia. We signed one with Chile. So right now, suddenly becoming a very active in negotiating our free trade agreement. Part of it is, Pak Ajo, is Indonesia so start understand. This is a collaborations era. So in order to, that's why I said the mantra is, for us to buy more, to sell more, we have to buy more as well. That's also the mantra that I did in Washington, D.C. After my arrival in September. We had some process of GSP review that has been lingering around for more than 2 years. Within, I think, about 8 weeks of my arrival, we settled with the United States of the review, and it has been closed. With simple proposal, because I want to buy a lot more of U.S. goods.
Right. Yeah. And I understand, Pak Lutfi, you were ambassador in Japan when the IJPA was implemented, right? So
yes.
Did you see that Indonesia actually benefited? The potential from IJPA, we took a lot from it.
Well, Indonesia-Japan free trade agreement was actually the comprehensive economic partnership agreement was actually the first one. Okay,
right.
So then at that time, Indonesian also did not know what do we want from it. For example, inside out, because the worth of the trade agreement at that time was around $500 million. So the Japanese would like to sell about $500 million of their products. This is like a powerhouse also. So basically, they sell. They wanna bring the car manufacturer to the car parts to Indonesia, free of duty for 3,000 cc car. Make it in Indonesia, and they will sell it back, whether it come back to Japan or other markets. So that was the idea. Okay. In return, Indonesia could not find. That's why I said, this is the top 30 of Indonesian export. So we are we were very simple in our process. Okay, so then we cannot sell $500 million worth of our export to Japan that need to be put down to lower the tariff for that process, because we sell raw materials. We sell gas, we sell coal, we sell oil to Japan, crude oil. Okay, so then, what do we do? So then Ibu Mari, as a negotiator at that time, given a sweetener. One is MIDEX. The MIDEX is some kind of enhancing of Indonesian process for industry. But unfortunately, they have no institution in Japan who was responsible for that. So MIDEX was basically not working at all. Okay, and second part was movement of natural people. We were promised that we can send about 3,000 caregivers and nurses to Japan. The problem during the negotiation, we had no idea, because other countries, as long as they graduate from a accredited university or accredited academy for nurse and caregivers, it will be automatically accepted in Japan. It was not the case. So then the Indonesians have to go through Japanese standard in Japanese. Okay, I was very loud criticizing the system, because the Japanese, the kanji, the system, the language that they're doing, even for Japanese doctors, it's so difficult. Let alone for Indonesian, was a lot of girls at that time, so Indonesian young girls. So they have to learn Japanese expeditiously in order to take the test. And, at that time, I don't know, 2,500 maybe during my time there. The one that graduate was like 7 or something. I'm exaggerating, okay? But the number was like 7. I can bring the whole of the caregivers with 5 airplanes. That was the numbers I give, because it was so difficult, So then it was not as good as the Chinese, the ASEAN scheme that we're having. Okay, so right now, Pak Ajo, we are talking back with the Japanese for review, and hopefully we can have a better working trade deals with the Japanese. The
Right.
Koreans, it's already there. We signed also with the Korean. During my time, we were in the final process of signing it. We didn't, but right now we have a modern style, a very aggressive free trade agreement with the Korea. So
Right.
everything else is working very well.
Right. Thanks, Pak Lutfi. From Japan to Korea, now to Vietnam. There is this question, interesting question from Susan Olivia. Over the last few years or so, Vietnam has pretty much become the export champion and even leaves the competition behind, including China and Indonesia. Would you be able to comment if there are any lessons, especially trade policies, that Indonesia can learn from Vietnam, especially given the fact that in the 90s, Indonesia was miles behind? Ahead of Vietnam.
Basically, Vietnam was opened in 1992.
Right.
Okay, and I spent my toddler's years in Saigon at that time.
Okay?
So we've been watching Vietnam quite closely. Okay, right. We have no, how do I say it? We have no excuse for losing competitions with Vietnam. But let me say that Indonesia is still on the right track. Why is that? Okay, so if you look the economic growth of Vietnam, one of it was the joining of Vietnam into TPP. Okay, and this is, I was there empirically, was before my eyes, and probably if somebody to be blamed, probably myself too. Okay, why is that? So I was in and like I said to you, in 2014, Indonesia had only two free trade agreements. One with Japan, that's not working very well, and also one with Pakistan. It's a small preferential trade agreement and ASEAN scheme. So at that time, I just came back from Japan. And the number of the investment cornered by, rocked by investment for automotive. And I thought that we're a champion, a bit pompous maybe, because I think at that time automotive is the best investment there is. This is the first trophy of them all. Okay, and they're moving from Detroit of Asia, that is Lam Chabang, in closer to Bangkok, to Kerawang in Indonesia. So investment at that time, during my terms in Tokyo was, when I arrived, investment of Japanese was 715 million. When I left, was 4.7 billion. Indonesia was ranked #1 by JBIC as destinations for investment. #1, never been in the history. And after I left, it drops down, and now we're #5. Okay, so then I was put into this portfolio by the previous president, and during my terms, we had one ASEAN economic minister and Nipidal, and the Singaporean basically had one dinner with me and basically said, Indonesia should join TPP. It was in August, and I'm leaving office in October. And I came I felt like a hero because, the cars manufacturing is moving and we are on the right track. I think, the Singaporean had the same dinner the next day because I basically says, well, maybe we cannot. But, it was a difficult time. Indonesia is a democratic country. Vietnam is not a democratic country. I have to go in front of parliament and I have to explain why Indonesia, because my illustrations of TPP at that time was, this is like mixed martial arts tournament, okay? Right. Everybody take off their clothes and they just use their muscle and beat up each other. Okay, that was my illustrations. And at that time, Indonesia, I couldn't face the parliament, and I couldn't do it. So maybe the Singaporean have something with the Vietnamese, and Vietnamese agreed. So by beginning of 2015, negotiations start. It was a very fast negotiations, and the Vietnamese does not basically necessarily have to go to parliament, or they had to, but not the way the big democracy, open democracy like Indonesia and Australia. So. Right. Story says, done, finished, become history. Suddenly a floodgate of investment, especially for electronics, came to Vietnam. I calculated around at least $8 billion in the span of 2 years came to Vietnam. But electronics investment, 8 billion is gigantic numbers, okay? Yes. And this actually becoming the cornerstone or become the rock of Vietnamese export. You know, it grows to 106% of its GDP, mainly out of electronics, and import 103. So this is one of the most successful. So the story from that story is, I have to say, that Indonesia is doing right now. If you look now for car manufacturing, you know, electronics, you know, especially EV cars, is a phone with 4 wheels, you know, and mistakes, you know, probably by Indonesia, but you know, we're coming back very fast. You know, we know that, you know, we have to be a producer at destinations for investment, for EV battery, for new energy and renewable energy. We are doing it right now. You know, we are doing the value additions of our basic commodity, you know, from nickel, copper, cobalt, you know, to be a structures for Indonesian export. So right now, the difference between the Vietnamese and Indonesia is Indonesia going into the upstream, the upstream of investment. The Vietnamese is in the middle of the things. So I think in the future, Indonesia will create comparative advantage of that, and we saw already that our stainless steel manufacturing selling to China, beating the Chinese competitions in China. And right now they are deploying a study whether it is an injury in China because the steel manufacturing coming from Indonesia. Newer technology, more efficient, cost structure very cheap because it's in front of the the factory, making the cost structures very good. So we took the study, and we know that's why the mantra is, you know, in order for us to attract investment, you know, we have to open our market. People comes and invest, you know, into Indonesian market, creating industrializations, creating products, pillars of Indonesian export. Happens with stainless steel, happens with automotive, and we know it will be followed by aluminum and alumina. Maybe next year, it will be copper and what do you call it? Downstreaming, you know, from copper, which is a lot of renewable energy stuff. And I think in the future, Indonesia will come up as a good plan for competing with Vietnam.
Right. But while this objective to increase the domestic value added, but do you think it's not going to be conflicting with the idea or the objective to integrate into the broader global supply chains? Because, you know, of course, value added can come from everywhere, right?
Yes, true. You know, you know, when we started that program, I was still at the end of my terms as trade minister in 2014. Okay, right. And I saw this before my eyes also, Pak Cho, yeah. I had so many letters. Some were quite nasty. Okay, I had. You know, I was very, well, I wasn't angry, but I had a nasty letter from the ambassador of Korea. I was so upset that I had to send that letter to Director General of the regional at the Foreign Service, and basically to summon the ambassador. I was very upset, okay? The reason was, why the Korean was upset, because we did that local content issue. Okay, right. And I'm telling the story so you know what really happened. Okay, you know, I'm gonna take my position away. This is an objective way of seeing it. Sure. But at that time, I didn't really know whether we did the right thing or not. Okay, but at that time, Indonesia's import for telephone, you know, handphone from the Koreans coming from Vietnam was $2 billion. Okay? Right. So then we deployed that ruling, and the Korean was so upset. Okay, the companies were so upset, the government was so upset, but they had no choice. They had no choice but to comply with the Indonesian regulations. So then what really happened was, voluntarily or not voluntarily, I don't know, because then I left office in October 2014. Yeah. So then they moved the factory to Tangerang. Do you know how much we import from Vietnam from handphone from Korean made today? Zero. Okay. Because of that, now suddenly I have a trade surplus from our automotive with zero component from handphone, you know, with the Vietnamese. 1.5 billion, and probably one of the few countries in the world that actually have a surplus with Vietnam.
Right.
So, I didn't do it, but it was a smart regulations. And this is also being discussed in many universities around the world at our policy. But at the end of the day, Pak Aco, we need industrializations in the country. Right or wrong, it may be a problem. We knew our national trial program in 1990s was not good. Okay, but I knew also that local content created a value added. Right or wrong, we have to face it. But sometimes protecting the national market, like Australian also do in many aspects, is also creating a value added for the countries as well. The next game, Pak Aco, is digital economy. It will be a fantastic issue afterward.
Yeah, on that digital economy, Pak Lutfi, there's a question about e-commerce, and we were talking about rendang, and then how even in this COVID situation, you said that actually people find innovative way to trade among one another. So, what is the if there is any policy or what is the view of you as a minister on this development of e-commerce in Indonesia?
Well, if a few things, Pak Aco, especially during this COVID, Indonesia learned at least 3 things. Okay, one is e-commerce. Okay, the growth of e-commerce, depending on how you want to look at it. Goldman Sachs was counting the boxes. Growth compared to 2019 in 2020, 384%. Okay. Bain was calculating something 7 times bigger than the year before. And suddenly, Indonesian market becoming very sophisticated in an online platform, in marketplace. Okay.
Right.
Second is suddenly we understand something new that we can teach and we can learn from digital platform. You don't understand, I've seen kids, school age 7 to 10, very proficient in learning, following teachers through online. And if I have some time with you, I'm going to show you why this is an awakening for Indonesia. We have the number of our grade school. It's 150,000. Only a little more than half can go continue to secondary school, to a junior high. Only 3/4 of that number can proceed to high school. Not because of the school's number, because making school is cheap, it's easy. Indonesia can do it, but to have a quality teacher is a different story. But with this platform digital to educate, suddenly we have an awakening that we can go with a quality education through online. Number 3, Pak Aco, is healthcare. Okay, we know this healthcare with the digital platform is inevitable. We have to do it. We have some problems still. So for example, in our marketplace, in digital economy, we have good stories. The good stories is like this. I read in some business magazine that Gojek is a ride-hailing company that start connecting with stores, with selling foods, selling sweets. And I don't know, to those of you that knows martabak manis, in 2017 or 2018, I shouldn't remember the year, but in the city of Jakarta alone, Gojek sold 500 billion rupiah worth of martabak.
Billion.
This is $30 million, Pak Aco. $30 million. How many would, martabak stores in Jakarta? If it's 1,000, their income as a martabak seller is bigger than my salary by far. Anytime. Maybe I'm in the wrong job, but that's a story. But the bad story is, suddenly, because e-commerce marketplace is something new in Indonesia, suddenly the basic essence of trading, it's being disobeyed. Okay, the basic ingredients of trade is fair trade. Maybe free, but it has to create a fair trade. That's why, all negotiations creating fair trades. And trades have to be beneficial for everyone. And these two ingredients of trade sometimes being disobeyed by marketplace. In Indonesia, if it's not forbidden, that means you're allowed. Right now I'm coming in and I need to protect my marketplace. I need to protect my consumer, and I need to create an environment that promote fair trades and trade that beneficial for everyone. In 2014, Pacho, I got so many issues that to regulate this e-commerce. Because the custom and excise would take some money because of the imports. The tax office would like to take, because they want to tax this platform or this traders in the platform. I have so many requests that, would like to impede the trades. I said, I didn't want to do it. So I don't want to rule it, let alone will be whatever will be. But 6 years from now, I got the opportunity to come back, and I see it's becoming very big, very huge. It's becoming huge, but there is no rule. What happened? I always told my analogy as Minister of Trade, I'm like an umpire in a boxing match. If I rule too hard, too details, the boxing match becoming uninteresting. Not interested at all, because there's no buyers and sellers will meet and do transactions. There's no boxing in a boxing match.
Yeah.
And if I don't rule, Pacho, what happened was the match becoming wild, and that is also not good for a boxing match. So I have to be really in the middle. And right now, I will come in and the architecture need to be met, and then I need to rule a little stronger in order to create fair trade and trade beneficial for everyone.
Fantastic, Pak Lutfi. I know our time is approaching the limit. Just on e-commerce and even the broader industrialization, of course, another factor, very important factor, is the logistics, right? And Howard Dick has a comment on that. Supply chains and logistics have been identified as an obstacle for Indonesia's export growth. You have given some good examples of building supply chains, but would you like to comment further on this role of logistics? Maybe this is the last question. Thank you.
Okay, so when Pak Jokowi came in 2014, the cost of our logistic is 26% of its GDP.
Right.
Okay, and we built massive infrastructure in the country. Basically, is to ensuring all the goods in the whole sites of Indonesia can come out and become to have an economic value. We need to build infrastructure. Places that is good in soil that can be created at a food estate will be feasible with this infrastructure. Okay. But all and done, Pak Acho, because, then again, we are an archipelagic countries. We have, arguably 17,000 islands, whether it's true or not, but, we're going to have somewhere in that neighborhood, and we have 81,000 kilometers of sea to be covered, to become a one country, one nations. It's always difficult to rule upon this, So then after all that and that, our cost of logistic, when Pak Jokowi came in 2000, on the second terms in 2019, our logistic went down but not low enough, 23%. Okay, 23%. We're supposed to be in a neighborhood of 17%, but development is all difficult, because it has to be, this is a big democratic country. Sometimes democracy is sluggish. We build the airport, but there is no road yet. It happens in India as well, back in the early 2000s. So we are experiencing that. But then comes what we call digital platform. Digital platform. So digital platform, believe it or not, expedite trades among regions, trades among cities, trade among provinces in the country. And, we are seeing numbers that we never seen in the past before. So then, we are probably one of the beneficiary of this digital platform. That's why I said, probably in the near future, with a good ecosystem, and government and I try to create this ecosystem to making sure that the logistic will be connected from one place to the other place. Yesterday, Pak Jo, as a last comment, I went to a platform called Tani Hub. Okay.
Yeah, I know Tani Hub. Yeah.
Tani Hub. So then, kids, I don't know, 30, 35 years old, that deal with farmers, to making sure that farmers will get as much money that they can from their product. They teach them how to create a high quality vegetables, much higher than my pricing as a Minister of Trade. I look and everybody's happy. They know where to sell, and they've been selling abroad as well with a box international standard, and this company will become $1 billion probably in the next 6 to 8 months, and I'm so proud, because suddenly, this is like a prayer, God promised that for Muslims, God promised that innamal usri yusra wa innamal usri yusra. If we have a problem, the solutions comes in multiple. And, the Indonesia is we're not being distanced by sea and roads, because suddenly digital platform creating a bridge for everyone to create economic value.
Well, with that encouraging note, Pak, I'm afraid we have to end now, and we have been benefited from 1 hour of your time. Thank you so much for wonderful explanation, candid comments, including very interesting illustrations, the box, matching box and things like that, and really interesting and very useful for us. Again, I apologize to our audience. We have more than 200 participants, and of course there are a lot of questions, but I apologize because our time is only 1 hour. We cannot attend to all the questions, but we'll make sure to copy all your questions and comments, and we'll send to Pak Lutfi's office just as a feedback and input to Pak Lutfi. So I hope to see you again, everyone, in the next event of this series. And again, one more time, thank you so much Pak Lutfi, and semoga sehat-sehat selalu, Pak. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Bang Aco.
Ya, terima kasih, Pak.